what is one or two things they can start doing to begin to get on the right path nutrition-wise?
Start your day with a balanced breakfast. A lot of my athletes, when they first got in, especially from high school, they were just skipping breakfast, going to practice fasted or, going straight to classroom. Get the protein you need, which will help with muscle gains, get the carbs you need to help with concentration, and then also have some kind of color, whether it's adding spinach to your eggs, adding a banana, adding some fruit, some kind of antioxidants to give you that good energy, but also help with recovery and antioxidants. My other one is always going to be hydration. Like, it's so easy and it seems so simple, but yet so many people don't do it.
Welcome to Charge Forward Coaching, the podcast for committed athletes and individuals who want to achieve more on and off the field. Hosted by James Blasco, certified mental toughness and resilience coach. You'll gain insights and inspiration from elite athletes, coaches, and others who know what it takes to excel. Are you ready to go to the next level? Then tune in, get inspired, and let's charge forward. Now here's your host, James Blasco.
Hello and welcome to the Charge Forward Coaching Podcast. I'm your host, James Blasco. Thanks for joining. Well, today we have a very interesting topic. Today we're going to talk about the connection between nutrition and mental toughness and mental performance. And to help us do that, we have an outstanding guest, Collier Madaleno. She is with Red Card Athletics. Now, they work with some of the largest universities and their athletic departments in the country, all centered around nutrition for their athletes. And most recently, she was the director of football performance nutrition at the University of Georgia. You might know them, right? They won a couple national championships lately, and she kind of grew that department. So I want to welcome Collier to the show.
Thanks so much, James. I'm so excited to talk to you and your listeners.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. So before we dive in to our main topic, why don't you give us a little bit of your background, especially the last several years?
Yeah, so I'm actually born and raised in Athens, Georgia. Grew up in a family that was very involved in health and fitness, and grew up playing sports. I did my undergrad degree at the University of Alabama, and that's where I got my first taste of sports nutrition. I actually worked in their football department and was part of their team when they won 2 national championships as a student worker, student volunteer. I later went on and did my graduate degree at Georgia State in Atlanta. During my time there, I worked with Marie Spano. She was at the time the dietitian for the Hawks and the Braves. And then later got a position at IMG, working with their NFL Combine program. And from there, my boss there became the director at University of Florida and called me and wanted to see if I wanted to come cover Florida football. So I was there for 4 seasons as their head dietitian, and then got my dream job, got to come back home, got a call to come work at the University of Georgia and was there for the last 6 seasons. So while I was there, I actually became a Red Card client. Red Card's great because it helps to fuel your athletes and give them freedom to choose what they want when they want while still being dietitian approved. So I was their client for 6.5 years and then had an opportunity to come join the team here and switched over in April and have been loving it.
Yeah, and you're back on. So we'll do another episode with you on going to Florida and then Georgia and how that whole dynamic worked. I'm sure that was very interesting.
Yes.
So here on the Charge Forward Coaching Podcast, we talk a lot about mental toughness. That's kind of the focus. And specifically, I love talking about the 4 C's of mental toughness: commitment, control, challenge, and confidence. And my first question is, when it comes to nutrition and nutrition performance, what is the role it plays in mental performance for these athletes?
Yeah. So the way you feel your body has not only an effect on your physical performance, but also your mental. I like to think of it as like making sure that we're focusing on foods that make you feel good and have sustained energy. You can have something that spikes your blood sugar and you have a spike and then a crash. What I'm looking for whenever I'm feeling my athletes is balanced meals. We want to make sure that we're maintaining their blood sugar, keeping them balanced, helping them to stay focused. Another big thing, you have to make sure you're keeping them hydrated. Even 2% dehydration can have a cognitive effect, can affect, your decision making, how sharp you feel, your concentration. And so nutrition can just have a huge impact on basically everything and how you're feeling in your performance.
So when you're working with say the football team at Georgia, how does somebody like Kirby Smart or the other coaches now I know it's fairly normal within most universities and schools and teams, but how is it working with those coaches? What's their viewpoint on nutrition and versus what it might have been years ago?
I think one of the best things to do is once you have buy-in and you have an athlete that does change the way they're performing because of how they're focusing and changing their nutrition, you instantly catch a coach's attention. If you have an athlete who now is eating better, feeling better, being better between reps, can finish team runs quicker, you're going to get their attention and they're going to be like, what are you doing and how can we support you to spread this? And I think that that's a huge impact, is like figuring out which athletes not only are interested, but are also ready for the change. Because once they do, it becomes like wildfire. Like everyone else is like, wait, what's he doing? Like, I want to get like that. And I think that's one of the best ways to get buy-in from coaches and even support staff to athletes.
Walk us through kind of from start to not finish, but getting an athlete, especially 18 or 19-year-old, or just getting on campus, maybe, where they came from, they weren't really familiar with nutrition and the right things to do. How does that start from the conversation to the process?
Yeah. So whenever our athletes get on campus, the first thing we do is we meet with them. We do an individualized consult. So what we're looking at is like, what are their daily habits? What's their nutrition knowledge? We also do a SCOFF test, which is not a diagnosis for eating disorder, but it's kind of a good way to kind of evaluate where they are with their relationship with food. This can be important because food can be fuel, but food can also be something that is a coping mechanism. And it's important to see where an athlete's headspace is when it comes to eating and fueling. So we'll look at those things. We'll also do a measurement of body fat percent, and also figure out, where do they want to be at weight-wise? Where does a coach want to see them at? And so basically one big thing is just figuring out where they are to start and then where they want to go. I also think it's important to figure out on this consult is what's their readiness for change. We learn about that in nutrition when we're learning about counseling. It's just, are they ready to make a lifestyle change? Are they sitting with me because they have to? Did their coach send them here? And figuring out all those things. And then I think another big part is just getting to know them as a person. Don't get to know them as tight end number 11, but where are they from? What kind of foods do they grow up? What do they enjoy to eat? And like making them an individualized plan off that. I was very lucky during my time at Georgia. I started off being the only dietitian. And by the time I left, we actually had 4 dietitians just for football. So we were able to give our athletes that individualized care and plan and kind of help to develop them along their journey.
So we talked about kind of working with the coaches on the field, but I recently spoke to Kat Lutz. She's the director of mental performance at IMG Academy down in Bradenton. And I'm wondering, what is your relationship with performance coaches, at these schools? How does that work? Are there communications between the two of you?
Yeah. So we have a great mental health and performance staff. We actually have, those are 2 different departments, I would say. We've got one guy who comes on campus and he helps with, getting the guys ready mentally, helping them to, come off injuries maybe, and just kind of different ways of life. And then I've got someone too, who if I had a feeling that an athlete was challenged with maybe some coping mechanisms using food or having, questionable relationship with food, I'd probably loop them in as well. So we kind of had 2 different categories for that, but both were utilized so importantly. And as we know, mental health is has a huge impact on how you eat, how you fuel, and also just how you're feeling throughout the day. So we would definitely use those weapons to help, give our athlete the total encompassing, making sure we're hitting every aspect of the athlete.
Sure. And this probably doesn't happen a lot. Maybe it does. When you get pushback from an athlete, I know at the highest levels, those kids are competing. They got there. There's probably their dream to go there and play and compete. But in some cases, there might be some kids who are like, I don't need to do that. I'm a strong athlete, whatever. How do you work through that with them?
For sure. You get your athletes sometimes that come in and they are like, I will do everything you say. Just tell me what to do. I'll do it. Then you got some guys that were 5 stars. They didn't eat how I want them to eat all their life and look at where they're at. They're at University of Georgia. Do they need me? So you have different types of athletes. I will say sometimes time can help to get an athlete to buy in. Maybe it's something like, a hamstring pull. They weren't eating properly. They were dehydrated. They had a hamstring pull. Now they might focus a little bit more on nutrition. Maybe they see a teammate who's working with us that's competing better. Well, that's a motivation. Maybe it's money year and they want to do everything they can this last season to go into the draft ready to roll. So different athletes are at different places. Obviously, we love athletes that come to us from the start and are just like hungry to do everything we say. But that's not reality. Not every 18-year-old's going to do that. And I think it's learning them, what makes them tick, and seeing where they are in life and how you can help them.
Are there any specific supplements, foods, things like that you utilize or educate the athletes on specifically for helping them mentally?
I would say big things that come to mind is omega-3s. They're so good at helping with concentration, inflammation. Your brain's made up of 60% fat, and omegas are awesome at helping you with brain health. It's part of our post-concussion protocol, pre-concussion protocol even, and honestly, every athlete could be on it. I also look at creatine. There's a lot of cool new research with its help with brain health, inflammation, again, concentration, and just making sure that the athlete's having like a well-balanced diet. A lot of fads on TikTok and things can say like, stay away from carbs, but carbs break down to glucose in your body, which is your energy source. You can't function, you can't concentrate as well if you don't have the right amount of fuel into your body. And so utilizing some of these great carbs can really help. B vitamins are always good too, and energy production. So there's a lot of different things. I think it's figuring out, at first, if someone's under fueling, like not eating enough throughout the day, that's my starting point. If they're doing everything right, then I might look at adding in those supplements too to help. But I'm a big believer in certain supplements helping with every little thing you can do.
Yeah, and why not utilize those, right?
Right.
You brought up a couple things. I'm curious about what are some of the latest trends. I mean, there's got to be some things happening that you're on the cutting edge of. You're educating people about. What are those things right now that could benefit these athletic programs?
Yeah, I would say creatine's one of the newer ones. It's been studied for years. Like everyone knows what creatine is, but it was mainly for muscle, but its brain function is now newer and more cutting edge. And, we were using it post-surgery to help with recovery. We're helping it post-concussion. And also just, it's great for fast explosive movements, which is the whole game of football. And that's kind of the older thought process, whereas the newer research is pointing towards its benefits for brain health. I would also say there's other things like cherry juice is another big, trendy, newer, but it's got a lot of good research for its antioxidant helping with sleep, muscle recovery, anti-inflammation. And so we use that a lot for our athletes, especially in season, just the wear and tear of the natural sport of football. It's so hard on the body. Getting your body in some anti-inflammatories can really be helpful. And then also I would say collagen is another big one that we were doing. So 30 minutes before practice, we were handing that out with vitamin C. Vitamin C helps you to absorb it. And collagen's great for joint pain, muscle pain, and also strengthening ligaments and tendons.
Yeah. So I have a question, and this is maybe a little bit of a silly question, but I'll ask it anyway because I'm curious. So you go ahead, you win a national championship, and that night everybody's going crazy. Lots of. Does everybody let their guards down? I mean, is there pizza flown and brownies and all this stuff? I mean, what does everybody? Are they back on the bandwagon instantly?
I would say that our big thing is like maybe celebrate for 24 hours, but then like we're ready for next year. I mean, we would win a natty, but then it's like you don't want to be the team that wins and then falls off. Like we would never be satisfied with just one win. Like we wanted to build a dynasty, like keep the competition. So while I think that by all means you can have fun, you can celebrate, have the foods you enjoy, it's just that, that needs to be more of a treat. It's looking at like the 80-20 kind of role. What am I doing majority on consistent basis? And we can't celebrate for months on end. It was a huge accomplishment, but we still had work to do to get ready for the next season.
Yeah. Well, so when that does happen, though, when a student athlete kind of falls off the wagon a little bit, maybe they that really impacts them negatively, emotionally, because they feel they disappointed themselves and the team. How do you work with them to get back on track and say, that's the past?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I think it's admitting, there's nothing we can do about what has happened. Like, let's change what we can do in the future, and like not making themselves mad at themselves. Like, the big thing is like, you don't want an athlete to be disgruntled and feeling like they failed and like there's nothing changed. What I would always tell athletes is like, what's great about weight? It's not permanent. It's not. It always changes. So if you aren't at where you want to be, like, let's get there. It's okay. Like, it's okay if you took steps back. Let's now change your mindset. Let's take steps forward.
Are there anything we're talking about football right now, so I'll stick with that, but anything from a position standpoint, a quarterback versus a defensive lineman or a cornerback, whatever it might be, anything specific to each of those nutrition wise that's different than, everybody else?
Yeah, I would say that like your skill positions, they obviously are covering more yardage. They're doing a lot more running. Like whenever I was writing their meal plans, I would do more grams per kilogram of their carbohydrates because they're covering a great amount of the field, running sprints, fast explosive movements, need that, and then like more of my linemen, that's where I really wanted to make sure. I'd love everyone on the team on omega-3s, but my linemen are hitting people head contacts every single play. So I would definitely want them on omegas to help make sure that was helping with inflammation, protectiveness of the brain. Quarterback, you have to make sure, honestly, that hydration's huge for them. Like, even though they may not be sprinting, we want to make sure that they can concentrate, their decision-making, ability is intact. And so there are some positional changes. I would also say that fast explosive movements, like especially for our receivers, DBs, like getting that creatine in can really be helpful for sprints, getting off the ball. That could be also helpful for a linebacker. So a lot of stuff's similar, but I would say like the amounts of protein, calories, carbs, that's where it really differs because different body sizes, different amounts of muscle mass.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Are you able to share a story of any one individual player? You don't have to mention names that when you first started a relationship, you were like, oh my gosh, this is going to be a project. But then they became the Hall of Fame nutrition athlete.
1,000%. Like one person that instantly comes to mind is one of my D tackles. He's from Georgia. He ate, Southern foods growing up, just loved, the fried foods, the mac and cheeses, the homey, yummy stuff. And it's not that we couldn't have that, but a lot of his stuff was he just didn't know how good he could feel. So I kind of started with him, like, let's do a 3-week challenge. Let's like take out fried foods for 3 weeks. Just 3 weeks. That's all I'm asking. And then let's see how we feel. So we did it and he was like feeling good. And I think the best thing that happened, and I know this might sound crazy, was that he went back to going to fast food and he physically felt sick. And I was like, what does that tell you? That your body actually doesn't feel good eating that? Like, it's literally telling you something. And he changed and he ended up being a first-round draft pick. He's still in the league and his weight is still, he ended up losing weight, losing body fat, faster, more explosive, incredible. But he also never gained the weight back because we taught him those life skills. And that's what I really love, is that I don't want to help an athlete to lose weight quickly or change something for a quick result. Like, I want to teach them how to do something that they can sustain the rest of their life. And he's one athlete that I really feel like we changed his life.
Yeah, what a great success story. That's going to really, truly change his life forever.
Well, yeah.
So when it comes to these teams and athletic departments, what do you think are some of their biggest challenges right now in handling the whole nutrition and the complexity of it?
Yeah, I think it's hard because, number one, you've got to get an athlete's mindset beyond what tastes good. Like, you've got to get them to try to think of like, what's going to help me to recover? What's going to help me to feel good? What's going to help me with performance? Not just like what's instant gratitude with taste. You can also make healthy food taste good, but of course, a lot of times like fried chicken does taste better than baked chicken, And so getting past of like, it's like food isn't just about taste, it's about fuel, and getting them to understand that mindset. I would also say like there's challenges in just feeding athletes in general, like in your dining halls and things like that. Oftentimes athletes can get food fatigue if they're eating in the same room and they want to do their own thing. And so there's a challenge that way. One of the things we did at Georgia was obviously we used Red Card, which was great. It really does let athletes get to go on their own, and you still get to track receipts and see what they're eating. But we also had a demo kitchen, and we taught our athletes how to cook. And I felt like that was one of those life skills that was like really fun. And it also got the athlete excited to like learn about food, learn about cooking, learn about prepping stuff. And they enjoyed doing it. They enjoyed eating their foods that they had, and they felt better when they cooked their own food instead of eating more processed foods or fast foods.
Yeah, I should go learn from them, because if my wife's not around, I don't know how to cook very, very, very much. But
yeah.
So what would you say to a young athlete? They're a sophomore, junior in high school. What is one or two things they can start doing without the support of their school or coaches to begin to get on the right path nutrition wise?
I would say start your day with a balanced breakfast. A lot of my athletes, when they first got in, especially from high school, they were just skipping breakfast and, going to practice fasted or, going straight to classroom, and just getting that sustainable energy to start your day is so important. It's going to help you to perform more in the classroom. It's going to help you to perform in the weight room and practice, but making sure that you get the protein you need, which will help with muscle gains. Obviously, that's huge for athletes, trying to physically stay in shape, get faster, get stronger, but also get the carbs you need to help with concentration. And then also have some kind of color, whether it's adding spinach to your eggs, adding a banana, adding some fruit, some kind of antioxidants to give you that good energy, but also help with recovery and antioxidants. And then, I think you asked for two, but my other one is always going to be hydration. Like, it's so easy and it seems so simple, but yet so many people don't do it. I mean, your body's made up to 60 to 70% water. There's no reason why it shouldn't not be important. Anytime you're low on water, it affects so much of your body. And I think just as simple as keep a water bottle on you is so important. Also, obviously, we're in the summertime, so I'm going to have to touch on electrolytes. Don't be scared of introducing the salts and electrolytes if you're out sweating. General population, if they're not exercising, they don't need as much sodium, but our athletes that are out on the field sweating in high temperatures, humidity, they definitely need the electrolytes to replace what they're losing in their sweat.
Yeah, especially here in the South. I know in Florida, just golfing recently, it's kind of ridiculous.
It's crazy.
So why don't we just kind of wrap up with, tell us a little bit more about the benefits of working with Red Card Athletics and some of the things that you bring to these universities.
Yeah. So we work with over 95 universities nationwide. And what we are is we're an off-campus dining program. Basically, we can help to our athletes or in our athletic departments, instead of feeding traditional meals in dining halls, give athletes funds that's through an app on their phone. Then the school gives us a list of restaurants that they want. We go to those restaurants, we get them a part of the program. Athletes will then have a time window where they can go eat at these restaurants. They get to order what they want, when they want, but then we keep a track of receipts. We have a team of auditors that goes through every single transaction to make sure everything's NCAA approved. And then all these receipts are also stored for the dietitian, strength coaches to see what their athletes are eating, which can be great to help have the data just to see what are your athletes like when you're not around, like what are they eating, but B, help in counseling, hey, I know you're trying to gain weight the right way. Looks like this order, if we change to this, that's going to better fit your goals. Yeah. So you get to see those live transactions. So for us, it was a win because it took a lot of logistics off me, the headache of scheduling food, getting food, putting it out. Our athletes got that autonomy and it was still dietitian approved. And then our administration loved it too, because you only pay for what's eaten. So less food waste, less money waste.
Yeah, it sounds like wins all around. I'm sure the kids love that autonomy a little bit.
They do
their thing. Yeah,
exactly. And they, we would have multiple options. So if a guy wanted to go to get Mexican and the other guy wanted to go get Italian, like those options are free. And if someone had tutoring at 7, they could go before. If someone had tutoring at 8, they could go after, whatever they needed. So it gives them a lot of freedom. I like to call it controlled freedom because it was nerve-wracking to give them too much freedom. So this was a good balance.
No, that's outstanding. So It was awesome having you on the program. Extremely knowledgeable. Everybody's going to learn a lot from that, and we really appreciate it. We know you're super busy, but thank you for being on the program.
Of course.
So for the rest of you, don't forget to like and share and subscribe and all that stuff. Go to chargeforwardcoaching.com, learn a little bit more about mental toughness, but most of all, just keep charging forward.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Charge Forward Coaching. Remember, the journey to greatness is built on mental toughness and consistent effort. So head on over to chargeforwardcoaching.com and book a free discovery call to take the next step in your journey. Until next time, stay focused, stay determined, and keep charging forward.